Hey, how's it going? And I'm excited to bring you this tutorial on how to make a portal in LightWave. This is a fun one, and there's no right and wrong at a certain point with this. I was actually inspired by this video, Portal Effect, and this is by Mahmoud Atashi. I think I'm saying that right. And anyway, if you get a chance, you should subscribe to him because he did a nice job putting this tutorial together. He made a lot of changes as it went along. The settings kept changing, but that's actually how you would do it. You would keep making adjustments until you got it the way that you liked it. So that's why I say there's no right and wrong at a certain point once you get the mechanics and the particle mechanics in place. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're just going to start here in LightWave, and I'm in 2018 today. And we're just going to go to Item. We're going to go null, and we're going to call this rotator, and we're going to go OK. And then we're going to go null again, and I'm just going to call this circle 1 and go OK. I'll make sure I'm on circle 1. I'm going to come down here into the Y, and I'm just going to type in 2. And that's just going to take it up, give me a 2-meter radius right there. And this is going to be the node that's throwing out our emission particles. We're going to attach an emitter to it. And that's basically what's going to create the effect. So what we're going to do right here is we're going to press M on the keyboard. And I don't know why I always say on the keyboard. I mean, where else is the letter going to be? Hey, press M on your refrigerator. And no, so anyway, I just say that out of habit. So press M on the keyboard. And we're going to parent this to the rotator. Yep. We're going to come down here to our end frame and set that to 240. Because we want this to be at least 8 seconds of fun. At 120, it's only going to be 4 seconds of fun. So then we're going to drag this playhead to the end. We're going to go to our rotator. And then down here, we're going to go to rotation. And we're going to change that to 7200. Because we want it spinning around a few times. So if you did it correct, this is what should happen. And that's essentially the mechanics of the effect right there, which I thought was creative right by itself. I wouldn't have even thought to have done that. So that is creative. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go and create an emitter to add to this. So you can just click on it in the screen. I like keeping these on position just because it seems safer. We're going to go to properties, make sure you're on circle 1. We're going to go to FX, we're going to go to emitter, and there it is. And then once you get to this point, it's just some settings. Now if you watch the original video, he keeps changing the settings because he's adjusting the look and things on it, and that's fine. On here, I'm just giving you the settings that I used. You can adjust these later, but hopefully it should go pretty quick. So for birth rate, we're just going to say 3,500. And here under gradient X, we're going to type in 0.1. And then at Y, we're going to type in generator size, 100. And then 0.1 again. So this is 100 millimeter. And we want this to be 1,000,000 is our limit. So we're going to add 3 more zeros. 1, 2, 3. And that's 1,000,000. Okay. And that means there's going to be a lot of them. And then we go to our next tab, and the only thing that we're really changing on here is the lifetime, and you can change, I changed that to 45. And if we go to motion tab, the only thing we're adding a little bit of vibration here, so we're just going to type in 0.1 there. And then we'll go to our etc. tab, and the only thing that we're really changing here is the parent motion, and we're dropping that down to 1%. And that's that. So if you hit play, it should look like that, where you kind of have those particles just kind of hanging in that position like that. Okay, and that's good there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go over here to clone, and now we're going to clone the outer circle. It's just one. It doesn't give us a choice to name it, so it's just going to come in as clone 1 number 2. And if we go into properties, we're going to go, it's a duplicate of what we already did. So we just need to double click on this and readjust some of our settings here. So because this is the outer sparky part. So for the birth rate here, we're just going to type in 7,000. If you didn't want so many sparks, you could decrease that number. And everything else is the same there. So I'm just hitting enter. And then under particle, let's see what we got here. We were lowering our resistance a little bit to 0.7. We're adding a little bit of variability in there because they're flying sparks. What's going on? Let's see. I meant to type it 0.2. And our lifetime, I'll just leave it at 45. That's good enough. And let's see. Under motion, this is kind of crazy. So we're going to make it look a little explosive. So we're going to put a 0.2 there. And then we're going to, for vibration, we're going to put in a 4. And for vibration, we're going to put in 50. 50. And that's that. Now notice how crazy it looks right now, right? So if we go into etc., we're going to change our parent motion to 15%. And that takes care of that. And that's all of the settings for our emitters. That essentially is our effect, really, if you watch it back. So while that's going on, let me just change into camera view here and just reposition myself, make sure I'm on the camera. And let me just back up a little bit here. Now there's one more thing that we can add to this, and this is the last null object I'm going to add. In the original video he has a ground floor that you can add, but I'm imagining this is in space, and there is no floor in space, so I'm not going to put the ground floor in. But I will put in, there's a collider to kind of clean up anything that might be flying into the middle here. So we're going to go to items, create null again, and we're going to call this collider, and go OK. And then we're going to go into properties, add effects. It's going to be collision. We're going to double click this. And I've got to double check. I had made a couple little notes here. Make sure I get all this right. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to make the radius 2 meters. Excuse me. And everything else is the same. And except we're going to change it from bounce to erase. And see how that cleans up the interior there. So then that makes it look just, and you can adjust that if you wanted to have a little bit more spill into the interior of our. So now if I hit play, well, you only can see the one little particles. If I switch here to my object 2, you can see the sparks flying off. So that's basically our effect. And I've got a little bit of zoom going on there on my camera. Let's see, did I want to do that? I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to zoom, but I could leave it there. Let me see. Where did I go wrong here? Right here. Let me just delete this. I didn't want to zoom around, so just back up here. There we go. Okay, so now we're basically done. All we have to do now is just add our hypervoxels to the emitter, and we're done. And there's just a couple things to be aware of there. So let's just go into VPR right now. We're in VPR, and we'll go into backdrop, and we're going to turn off our gradient. The other thing that's important to mention is that when you're doing hypervoxels, you've got to go into render properties, volumetrics, and make sure you use legacy volumetrics is on, otherwise it won't work, and it'll be frustrating because you'll wonder why. And the reason why is that box needs to be checked. Okay, so now we'll go back into backdrop, legacy volumetrics, and add hypervoxels. And this is where the magic starts happening. So we're going to start with our circle 1, which is our interior circle, and we click activate, and there it is. You finally see something. The first thing we're going to do is change it to a sprite, although you could change it to a volume, and that wouldn't be that bad. Here, if you wanted to, the particle size you might want to change. So these are just my settings. You don't have to. You can play around with these. I have this about 80. I don't think it really matters. Of size variation, you can put in 120. Oops, I see. I meant to put 80 millimeters, so it blew up the whole screen. Okay, so that's 80 millimeters, and the size variation is 120. And then we'll go to shading, We got to go through all these tabs. Now here's where you can pick your color, and you can, it's up to you. I'm just going to pick a red color because I like red. I have a gradient here under luminosity. I have luminosity actually at 350, but you can go in here and we can add a gradient real fast. For this, we're going to use the relative particle age, and then we're going to come here, click add another keyframe down here, and just change that to 0. And there's that. And this is kind of, if we hit play, you kind of get an idea of what you're going to see there. Now, the other thing to take note of is that your light actually has a big effect on this. So you may want to move your light and adjust your light. If you turn this down, of course, it affects how it looks. So it's up to you how much you want the light in there on that. And then the last thing that we got to do is, now here's where I was playing around with things. Again, I don't think there's any right or wrong how I did this one, just for fun. You should come in here and look at every single one of these, but I put in veins. And let's see, I ended up with, for my texture amplitude, I had 400. And I put this on velocity, translate. That's just how I did it. And I did put this to 3. All these to 3. But what you need to do is honestly come in here and just play around with it. See there, it looks like I need to bump up my light a little bit. So maybe my light is too low. Let's see. Let's hit play and see what that looks like. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so it's kind of almost pulsating, right? So that's just how I liked it to look. You may like it to look a different way. Okay, I actually think I could back off my light a little bit there. I overreacted. I didn't think it was there. Okay, there we go. So that's what you do, is you just got to play around with it and get it to where you like it. And you can just play all day around with it. And that's it for that one. Then we're going to click on this one, and we're going to go activate. And holy cow, what happened there? Okay, and there's this one we have a little bit more work to do. So we're going to change the surface to sprite. And gosh, let me go over here. See, it's our particle size, right? So we really want really small particles here, because these are 5 mm. So these are the small little particles. The size variation, again, I have this at 100. There's that. And the stretch direction here, I put it on velocity. And there you can see right there, you've got your effect. And there's nothing else there. And now if we go to shading, this is where you can really start playing around with things. Of course, if you change the color right here, make it like a darker red, you've already got kind of an effect going there. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to go in and put this on a gradient. And here's where you can, again, play around with these. Of course, this is overriding the color we just put in. So I don't know. It's completely up to you what you want to do. So I'm just going to, let me just find some color red here. Something like, like that. And I'll just pick that one. And there's some red there. And then what you do is you're just going to click it down here, and because you're going to have a little bit of a color shift. And this one is, it's just a change in the color. So whatever color you want it to, I would imagine you probably want it maybe to go to a little maybe lighter red. And you can see kind of the effect you're getting. And play around with these. If you want them whiter, redder, it's up to you how you want to do this. Just look at what you're creating here and see if that's the look that you want. And I'm going to call that one done. Let's see, I'm looking here. Then we're going to go into luminosity here. I'm going to put this at luminosity at 250. Let's make this 250. And we'll go into texture mode here. And again, we're going to add another gradient. Gradient. And this is, we're going to use particle age. I've got to double check something. Did I use particle age here? I used previous layer. I meant to put particle age. for that one. Okay. And then for this one, a particle H2. Okay. So always be aware of your input. I'm always forgetting that for some reason. Now, if we come in here, we're just going to add a little bit of variability here. So this one is going to be 600. We're going to add another key like right around here. And that one is going to be 100. And then we're going to add another key like right about there. And this one is going to be 80, a little darker. Whoops, not that, not the alpha. Sorry about that. I meant to just change the value, 80. There. And that's it for that. And essentially, you won't really be able to see this on playback right now, but because of the VPR. But you've got the particles flying off there, and that is essentially the whole effect. Now, one thing you can do is you can go to camera, and you can go to properties, and you can add motion blur on here. And let's see, I'm just double checking what I have here for camera properties. Okay, so this could be 120. So quite a bit of blur on there. And adding blur does increase the render time. And you might want to just bump this up a little bit to like 10. Okay, and that's it for that. And the only other thing that you could do, this is a nice effect to add. He added, if you go into backdrop and you go into processing, you can add the bloom. And this actually is a nice effect to add, but you don't want to overdo it with this. So let me just see. I have to double check what I actually used for my bloom setting on this. Because the problem with the bloom is you have to render it out to be able to see the effect. Unfortunately, that takes time. So, but it's not very much. I know that. So, okay. So the size on this, we're just going to do 15. There's a lot to be said for less is more, and 30. So we just don't want to overdo the bloom effect. So now let's just go ahead and render this out and see what it looks like. So I'll just click here and render a frame real fast. And see if that's kind of getting me what I thought it would. So let me see. Can I make this bigger? Let me back out a little bit here. That's a little too much. Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. So it's just a question of playing around with it, honestly, playing around. So the bloom is what it's going to do is it's going to kind of light this area up when it comes around. So as it's kind of burning around, you'll see this area lighten up a little bit more. But the most important takeaway from this whole tutorial is that once you have the mechanics set up, this part, the part, if we go into the hypervoxels, this part here, I want to say that there's no right or wrong in these settings. This is completely up to you to experiment with and play with. And if you find that you want the sparks to last longer, you can adjust that with your particle life and things like that. And if you're running out of sparks, you would go in here to, let's see, let me go objects. You would just come in here to your properties here. The likely settings to would be your birth rate if you wanted to add more. And then if you wanted it to last longer, you would increase the life here. And then you could just play around with this. I mean, this may not, you maybe don't want so much vibration and stuff. The other effect he added, if you go in here to processes, he also added a corona. But personally, if you double click here, I didn't like that effect added on there. If I go to render frame, you can see. So it's honestly a question of your personal preferences of what you like and what you want. And have fun. That's the most important thing. Have fun with this. I think this is a really cool effect, and I might go back and revisit this in a little while. And I was thinking of adding another particle emitter, spinning in a circle, another clone, but then having it emit a little bit of smoke. So I'll see where I get with that. But anyway, I hope you found this helpful. This is a really great effect. If you come up with a really cool portal, please be sure to share what you came up with and let us know how you did it, what your settings were. And that's all I have for today. So thanks a lot. Have a great day, and I will talk to you later.